Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Monster Fridays, and we're going to be talking about holy moly. We've been going through the Saw franchise, and we finally got to Jigsaw from
Mhm.
2017. This has been a journey through this franchise, but I will say I'm glad that we've returned to it, and we're almost there, guys. We're almost there. This has been like crazy. So this is the eighth movie in the franchise. It's crazy to think we've gone. This will be the eighth movie we've been talking about. Corey Edwards with me and Killian as always. What's up, guys? What's going on?
Not much.
All right, all right. Um, and Kill, you there? You are you frozen or?
No, I'm right here.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. Well, let's see who we have in the chat, and then we'll get going on this. Let's see. I see a couple people here. We've got uh, JJMPB. Jigsaw was on Sci-Fi Channel earlier today. Oh, what a coincidence!
Nice. Mm.
All right. Okay. We got Russell's in the chat. All right, saying he smashed the
Hey.
like button before I came in this awesome stream. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, man. Seriously, you're
Right?
always there
Yeah, yes.
reminding people and so forth and so forth. We really, really appreciate it.
Hmm.
And also saying he owns Jigsaw on Blu-ray and ready for Saw 10. That's right, guys.
Nice.
And let me
Right?
just say, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But next October, man, it's crazy to think, about a year from now. Ginger Ninja's in the chat. What's going on? What's going on? Good to see you. We got Neil from Neon Black Reviews. What's going on? Saying, hey, guys. All
Hey,
right.
hello.
Let's see who else. I want to make sure I just said hello to everyone. We got Liz in the chat. What's going on?
Hey.
Good to see you. Good to see
Hey.
you. And Twisted Pictures. I love this. That's so cool.
Right?
Twisted Pictures in the chat. Tobin Bell is officially back, baby. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. All right, guys. So real quick, before we get going here, let's just do a quick take on what we, opening thought on Jigsaw. I'll start with you, Kill, and then Coriander before we get going proper. Kill, what are your opening thoughts on Jigsaw?
I thought this was a great entry into the franchise.
Okay.
And I feel bad because no one really talks about this one.
Right.
It had some good mystery going on
Mhm.
and had some really cool kills.
It
So
did.
yeah, this
Yeah.
this was a good entry in my opinion. Yeah.
Okay. All right. How about you, Coriander?
I feel almost the same. It was an enjoyable movie. I was surprised to see Tobin back. It was like, what? It's like I thought he was dead because this is like only the second time I've seen it. So
Hmm.
I pretty much, forgot. And yeah, it
Hmm.
was a nice surprise. And once it all wrapped up, and yeah, it was a great movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was some really cool things in it too. It definitely isn't a bad part eight in a franchise, that's for sure. Compared to some other franchises, of course, we know those particular franchises. But it was cool to have Tobin back, and he had a nice little part there, and the mystery of what's going on, how is this happening, and so forth. I really, really did enjoy that, and anytime I can see Tobin Bell, that's a great thing. It really is.
Hmm.
Um, Lay saying, "Yeah, that's true. Jigsaw has some cool surprises. It's true. It really, really did." And we'll talk about those more as we get going. But we're going to take a quick second to get finished getting set up, and hopefully have a few people join into the chat with us. So, for you guys watching the replay, and for you guys here live, sit back, relax. You know what time it is. Saying, Kill. Let's start this off.
Okay.
What are your opening thoughts when this movie started?
Okay. Well, for me, with this entry, we're kind of starting fresh. We don't have,
Right.
Costas in here. We don't have Jill in here. We don't have any of the alumni.
Right.
And I remember I went and saw this in the theater because I was just so curious. And the main actor in here, he's an Australian actor, and I remember seeing him on like this show called The Glades. So I was really interested in. I
Yeah.
think his name is Matt
Matt
Passmore.
Passmore.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I was really interested to to see him in it because I was like, okay, let's see what they're doing with this, and is he
Mhm.
the new protagonist and so forth. And I was just really excited to see what direction the franchise would take, with this one
Yeah,
doing a start.
absolutely. How
Yeah.
about you, Coriander?
Um, yeah, really didn't know what to expect, because like I said, I haven't seen these movies too many times, so I
Right.
didn't know what to expect, and yeah, the way it began, it was good,
Hmm.
and like Killian said, it brought something different, because you didn't have this whole, because in a way, all the first what one are we on? Is this seven or
This is the eighth. This is the eighth one.
okay? Well, it seems like all like seven movies were kind of like connected, you
Right, right,
know.
right.
So this is like a new, fresh story. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it started off, and you really didn't know what to expect. It was kind of odd that way, and
Mm,
you start off with the guy that's running from the law, and he's going up on the roof, and there's all these things going on with cops and the standoff and all that, and you're like, well, what does this have to do with anything? And then of course you go into the scene where we see our main people that are going to be in the traps, with the bucket heads and so forth. And that's when it started to feel kind of like something that's more, the regular vibe of a Saw movie. And then all of a sudden, it kind of just goes from there, and it starts to kind of go like right at 100 miles per hour, which I thought was pretty cool. I mean, it was definitely a very, what's the word I want to use, Kill? It was a tight movie,
Yeah.
it
Oh
didn't
yeah.
like really slow down. Interestingly enough though, the directors of this one, and Kill, you and I have talked about a couple of their movies before, but this was by the Spirit Brothers,
Hmm.
and they've done some really cool stuff. Most most notably Predestination, which is a favorite of ours.
Hmm.
And I love that movie so much, but you could tell that this one had a different like directing style, you know what I'm saying? But Kill,
Yeah.
what did you think of our cast? And I'm going to try to pull up the images here. But let me know what you thought about the cast once we saw the folks that were, in this game tied to the chains and the buckets.
Well, like this entire movie has so many great character actors that I'm just looking and I'm like, oh, I know her. She was on the TV show V, or I know that guy. He was in the Thang remake or the Thang prequel, or like I was saying, Matt Passmore was on a show called The Glades. So it's
Yeah.
just so many great character actors that, I know their faces. Man, our boy from Battlestar Galactica.
Yes.
And I can never remember that guy's name, but he plays a great asshole, and,
Yes,
and he's
yes,
kind of the
yes, yes.
asshole cop
That's
here.
Callum Keith Rennie.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. I knew it was Callum something. He's
Hmm.
always great because either
Hmm.
you're gonna really like him or you're gonna hate him.
Yeah.
And also his partner in here as well. So you have a great cast, and everyone played their part very tight. And what I
Right.
mean by that is, there is an overarching mystery here, and you don't really realize it till maybe midway through the movie,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
in a way. But all of the acting is tight, whether it's the two police detectives we're following, whether it's the two forensics examiners, or rather
Hmm.
it's the people who are in playing the game. So
Right.
I
Right.
love that you had those three perspectives.
Yeah, it
And
was. It was like three perspectives. And then there was another one later on in the third act, which
oh
was
yeah.
like, hell yeah, man. He's back, man. And he had, well, we'll
Yes.
get to that. But anyways, Coriander,
Yeah, well, yeah, save it. We'll get to it.
yeah. Coriander, what did you think about the opening cast, in that first trap with the bucket heads and how these folks had to work together? What did you think of all that?
Out of this group, they seem to, work better together. This is
Yeah, that's a
actually
good
a
point.
group that, kind of, knew that shit, if we don't do this together, we're fucked.
Right, right.
So, yeah, I mean, I didn't mind these characters. The cast was, yeah, pretty good to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too, man. You're right. They worked together a lot better than we've seen in a
Mm,
lot of these movies where there's multiple people that are are kidnapped. Um, Twisted Picture saying Matt Passmore was great in this movie. I thought so too. I
I
really did.
agree.
yeah.
Um, Ginger Ninja saying the Spirit Brothers are freaking awesome. Undead, Daybreakers. Yep, that's right.
Yep.
Daybreakers, Predestination, and Winchester. We
Nice.
saw we
That.
saw that one, Coriander. That was a
Yeah.
good one with Helen Mirren and all the rooms that were being built in the house.
Yep.
More rooms and
Yep.
more rooms.
That
That
was
that was a
good.
good one. Yeah.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, so they've done some good stuff. I really hope to see them do some more movies because I do like their style, you know. Um Lay's saying I do enjoy the stuff they do with the timeline in this film, throwing us off by making us think the game we see is the game we think that's going on in the present.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
I
it
was
was
even
really,
like,
really
how
cool.
can he be alive? It's like I thought he was
Right.
dead.
Well, let's get into some of these different moments here. Kill when we
Hmm.
and basically this is a game for people to have to confess the evil deeds that they've done.
Right.
And that first one with the syringes, the needles, man, that was that was
Ah,
pretty gross. What did you
Oof.
think of that one?
Man, well, for one, I love how they're all chained by the neck and are kind of dragged into the next room. And,
Right.
this particular one, they just said, look, someone here stole a purse. There wasn't that
Hmm.
much money in the purse, and you let the person die for like
Right.
$3. So admit your sin and choose one of these vials, or
Hmm.
everybody dies.
Right.
And you know just the tension of, I mean, this is, I guess, essentially the second trap, but just the tension of
Right.
this one was
Hmm.
like really there. Like, they started at 100, with the
They
whole,
did.
look, stop worrying about only you. you,
Hmm.
you got 1 in 3 chance here, for the
Right.
most part. So
mhm,
look, just do this, or these chains are going to hang us all and we're gonna die.
mhm.
Yeah.
you
Right.
know
Yeah. And
so
and,
yeah.
and this guy, he was he was hilarious in moments. Like seriously, you always have to have that one person in the group that's kind of like a
Yep.
jackass or whatever. Um but Coriander, what about you with the syringe, the test? She realized which one it was because it was the
Mhm.
one that was basically the amount of money that she stole the purse and got money out of her purse from snatching the purse from this
Yeah.
lady, but also the lady's medication she needed, and the lady died.
Mhm.
What did you think about that whole setup and obviously what happened to her?
Yeah, she should have just, taken that syringe and stuck herself, but
Would
she
you have?
chose, hell yeah, either
Okay.
that, I'm gonna die anyway because I'm injected with poison.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the only syringe that fit the whole scenario. So
Hmm.
yeah, come on.
Yep.
But she
Absolutely.
chose to be dumb and look what happened. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you guys said, while this is happening, Kill, there's this investigation because there are people that are dying. And
Hmm.
obviously, and these two, Matt and Callum, they had a really this great like tug of war thing that was going on between them, where you have a police officer, a detective, and the person who's basically your morgue guy, doctor. And so this whole thing between the two of them, Holleran is who Callum was playing, and Matt was playing Logan. But it was interesting chess match. What did you think about their relationship? Because it really was kind of some of the glue for this whole movie between the two of them.
I loved it.
Hmm.
These two veteran character actors, every time they had dialogue together, you could tell that neither of these guys liked each other.
Right, right.
And neither of them kind of, were afraid of one another.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and and what I liked, and you had mentioned it a little earlier about the pacing. They don't take too long to say, well, this guy did this to me. The only thing you find out is a little later on, another character just says that, hey, this guy, sometimes he bends the rules too much as far as a cop or a
Hmm.
detective, which is per for the course of the detectives in the Saw
I
franchise for
know,
the
man.
most
I
part.
know. Yeah.
Um, and Matt Passmore's character was just like, because this guy, being aggressive or bending the rules, I've had
Hmm.
innocent people come across my, coroner's,
Right.
table, and
That's right.
he you know,
Yep.
but they don't dwell on any of that. They just keep it
Right.
going, and the pacing is just so tight. And just seeing those two kind of butt heads with just the verbal kind of back and forth that they have, it's like, oh man, this is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ginger Ninja was saying one thing the Saw franchise has done is choose great actors for each specific role. I agree,
Mm,
man. I think,
Yeah.
in all of
yeah.
these movies, they've got good actors. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Each movie has standout actors, even beyond Tobin, you know what I mean? Each movie has actors that really you believe them, and we've all seen movies where people might be playing detectives or they might be playing, a certain type of character, whatever. And it can fall flat, but I think in these movies, and it makes sense too, because these movies, as much as people remember the traps and, it's a whole part of, the torture porn subgenre and so forth. Really, these movies are carried by the mystery and the detective work or figuring out the mystery and finding out about people's motivations from their past and stuff like that. That's what really carries these movies the most. So I guess what I'm saying is you have to have actors that can carry it, so that's when you bring in people like Costas and Callum and all these other actors that are really 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 good. Shawnee, it's like there's been a lot of great actors in this franchise,
Mhm.
um and it's a credit to them. But Coriander, let's move forward a little bit. Let's talk about the scene where the look. There are rules in a Saw movie, right? And
All
you
right.
gotta follow the rules. So if you're walking towards a door that says no exit, you might not want to keep walking, or that's what's going to happen. Your foot is going to go through the floor, and there's going to be this whatever it was, like an iron wire or whatever, that wraps around your
Yeah.
leg, about to slice it apart. What did you think about this scene? And of course, the predicament that he was in, and actually it goes into the next trap too. But what did you think about this?
I mean, this guy, yeah, he obviously just wants to get the fuck out of there and
Right.
doesn't realize that, you know, that, yeah, this is real and this is a game. And I don't know, he learned the hard way. So,
He
yeah, he was
did.
a fool.
Yeah. Kill, what did you think of that one?
Man, once again, this was nerve wracking. That tension. I
Yeah.
mean, he has like the piano wire or
Yeah. Piano wire. Yep.
tightening around his leg in like three
Hmm.
separate spots, and
Yes.
the mechanism is just just keeps twisting it tighter. and
Hmm.
and, and of course, Jigsaw, or the puppet is just saying things like, oh, the only way to free yourself is to pull the lever and this and that, and it's just like,
Right.
oh man.
Well,
It's
what was even worse is that, so he's kind of having that dilemma, and of course, and we didn't even really talk a little bit about some of these characters, but let me just take a moment, and especially for these two, Kill. You've got Mandela Van Peebles, who's playing Mitch, and of course Laura Vandervoort, who's playing Anna, and and they were pretty prominent, especially Anna in this particular movie. But they're looking for a way to free him, and they go into this circular room. And I knew when I first saw this, I knew as soon as they did that it was going to be bad news. So of course, when they try to
Yeah.
grab the remote, the door shuts behind them, locks, and then they've got grain that's filling it up. And the only way they can get out, because Jigsaw's puppet is there, telling them the only way that they can get out is if he pulls the lever. Now that's some messed up stuff, because obviously as he's pulling the lever, that piano wire is tightening up. It's like, and it was a really tough scene, man. Because then there was stuff that was coming from the top where the grain was, where it was sharp objects, pitchforks, knives,
blades.
saws,
Yeah.
blades, and they actually get cut quite a few times. It was a really really good scene. What did you think of that one, Coriander? And then I'll go to Kill.
Yeah, this was a rough one because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're almost buried in this grain,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And then you really can't move,
Right.
and you've got these, like you said, sharp objects that yeah, are coming
That's
down, and
right.
yeah, it's just none of these traps ever want to be, they're no fun, and I would not want to be in any of them.
Right.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
it's like, yeah, you for sure think that these guys are fucked. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And of course, he eventually, because I think Anna was pretty smart because she's like, if we die, you'll die. You know what I mean? Because he was trapped.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah, it was.
needed someone else to help. So I think it was really smart that she said that to him because that gave him that final push to pull the lever. And of course, he pulls the lever and the wire just cuts. And his leg, it was a it was such a gross scene, right, Kel? I mean,
Oh, it was
his
great.
leg his leg falls to the floor and it like breaks into three. It's like
Yeah.
holy shit, man. It was
Sliced
bad.
ham.
Sliced, man.
Yeah.
It,
Bone
it was
in.
it was bad, man. Real quick too in the chat, let me catch up to these guys. Let's see. Lay is saying we do got to give it to Saw for being the franchise that defined the early 2000s. Yeah, I agree. It really, really did. I mean, it did a lot of great business for sure. Each movie. Russell saying, "I want Hoffman back for 10." That would be cool, man. That would be. I would love that.
Right?
Eric's in the chat. What's up, Eric? Saying I thought this was pretty good overall. Spiral was even better. And there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
All right. Nellie's in the chat. What's going on? Ginger Ninja saying I really enjoyed Spiral. All right. And of course, that'll be our next one that we're gonna actually a revisit. Neil saying grain doesn't
Yeah.
work that way. It's not quicksand. And Twisted Pictures saying we need Detective Fisk from Saw 4 and Saw 5 back in the universe. Surprisingly, he's never seen or mentioned after those two movie events. That's a good point. Good point. And also Eric was saying, I love how Billy has become as much of a horror icon as Jigsaw, if not more, and he's literally just a puppet and nothing more, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did used to say if it's Halloween, it's got to be Saw. I mean every year, they really had a run that was really cool. But Kill, let's talk about another trap that I thought was really really cool because he pulls the lever, he saves Anna and Mitch, and then of course it's time for Mitch to be tested. And we had seen this contraption early on in the film, but we had no idea what it was. And man, this was rough. We see from his past that he sold a faulty bike to someone who was related to this particular individual, and that was pretty crazy. What'd you think of this trap?
Yeah.
Man, it's the spiral. It's the spiral
Right?
trap.
It
I mean,
is.
yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this one was hardcore, man. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this dude is dangling,
Yeah.
and of course, the way to get out of it is there's a motorcycle brake lever that's at the bottom of
Yes.
it,
Mm-hmm.
and whew, man, it just I guess for me, and they're very clever with how they shot this one.
Yes. I was
you
thinking that
you
too.
you you really don't see how much it cuts him until the body just flops down and
Yes.
it's just chunks of meat like
Mm.
this left, man.
It
It's
is, man. It
Yeah.
really,
bad.
really is. It's bad. Coriander, what did you think of this
Yeah.
one? And of course, he's got the motorcycle, the faulty motorcycle there that's actually spinning it, which it was just a cool
Yeah.
looking contraption, man. It really, really was. What did you think of it?
Yeah, this one was pretty cool, and that chick was smart to grab that, bar and throw it in a tire
Yes.
to stop it for a few minutes so that that
Hmm.
guy could try to get that lever and pull it, but no, squeeze the
Yes.
brake.
Right.
And yeah, he couldn't, and yeah, like Killian said, it was just a mashed mess, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Lee is saying, I think I did like the spiral trap. It's brutal and effective. Definitely my fave. Yeah, I
Nice.
definitely think it was kind of that centerpiece for the movie, so to speak. But yeah, what a trap. And then of course you have with the detectives and the doctor and so forth, they're all trying to figure out stuff, and you start to see red herrings all over the place,
Mm,
because first of all, Halloran is thinking that it could be the assistant, but he's also thinking it could be Logan, because of course him and Logan don't see eye to eye. And so it's a lot of this stuff going on. And I'm talking about when we first saw it, before we knew what was going on, I thought it was a really good mystery because you really
Yes.
didn't know which way it was going, because of course Halloran was kind of a dirty cop, right? And
mm,
the assistant, she was really weird. And of course you found out that she was one of those people that was idolizing Jigsaw. And there's this whole almost like a cult type of vibe or community that idolized Jigsaw, and also trying to recreate his traps and so forth. So she looked guilty. And of course, with Logan, Halloran was definitely trying to paint this picture of Logan, and we found out that he was a veteran who had a lot of things going on. He was a POW and all this type of stuff. So, Kill, what did you think about the mystery going on? Because at this point in the movie, we really, first time you watch it, you really don't know what's going on. What were you thinking when you first saw it?
Man, I was loving it because
Mm-hmm.
all three of those actors, Halloran, Matt Passmore, and his assistant, as the
Mm-hmm.
movie goes on, they start doing little things that make
Yes,
them look guilty, or
I
they
agree.
sound a certain way, and that's all done on purpose to
Right.
because the way the movie is pointing. I mean, look at her right there, beautiful lazy there with like I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
as the movie is going on, they all start sounding a certain way or doing certain things, and
Mm-hmm.
the movie kind of points us to it's one of these three, probably.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and like you were saying, stuff that was the dark web. Things were pointing back
Yeah.
to Matt Passmore's lab. Halloran starts asking, "Well, how long have you known your assistant?" And how well do you know her? Where was she at? Where were you at? So it's
Mm-hmm.
just this whole kind of cat and mouse, and kind of like a bottleneck feeling of like distrust,
Yep.
and them not knowing who they can trust, and just finding out more and more about one another. And then I,
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad because the other detective, uh,
He was just
Halloran's,
kind of, yeah.
yeah, he was just
Good.
along for the ride. He was just like, "Look, I don't,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about any of y'all anymore."
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
And of course, but we also found out that he was working for internal affairs, and he actually was investigating Holleran.
yeah.
So in other words, Holleran already was looking really, really bad from all points of view. He
Yep.
really, really
Mhm.
was. Coriander, when you were first watching this, the first time you saw it, what were you thinking as far as this mystery was going? Who do you think was dirty? Was it Holleran the cop, or was it Logan, or was it his assistant, or did you think it was someone else?
Well, I knew it wasn't the assistant just because it was too easy for that, for
Okay.
her to be it.
Mm-hmm.
But with the detective there, I really didn't think it was that the other, I don't know,
Right.
what do you want to call him, the doctor
Doctor.
or
Yeah.
mortician or
Doctor.
whatever he was. Yeah, I
Forensic
really didn't
doctor.
think I could not remember that it was him. So yeah, it was, yeah, I thought it was the cop at first, definitely.
Okay. Well, the thing that I thought was really cool, you're following this mystery, and then all of a sudden, when you have, because all that's left is Anna, she's left. Mitch had just died in the spiral thing, and then of course you got was it Ryan? So you got Anna and Ryan that are left. His leg is chopped off, so he's messed up. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, when Anna thought she was gonna get out of the room, because we found out it's basically like a farmhouse that they're in. And as soon as she tries to get out, you realize that they're not alone. She gets knocked out. She wakes up in a room. Her and Ryan are face to face to each, from a ways from each other, but they're tied up. And who should come into the room? Kill. There he is, Tobin
Yeah.
Bell, John Kramer. And I'm telling you, man, when I first saw this movie, I was like, wait a minute, what? You know?
Hmm.
It really kind of threw me off my game watching this movie. What did you think, Kill?
Look, man, I loved it. I mean, they even told us at the beginning of this, I mean, for the most part, that it's been 10 years since he's died.
Right.
you
That's
know,
right.
to the point where like the police chief says, "Well, dig up his corpse. I want to see a body,"
Right.
because all the signs are pointing to the Jigsaw killer, to John
Yeah.
Kramer.
Hmm.
DNA evidence, blood
That's right.
evidence. So I'm watching this and I'm like, how is this happening? Like, what is
Right.
going on? And
Hmm.
I mean, they really kind of got all of us. You know,
Hmm.
Yeah.
it was
They really,
great.
really did. What about you, Coriander? Well, I know you were thinking, well, how is he alive? But what did you think about his scene and what he was setting up between these two?
It was good. I mean, he's always good, and
Hmm.
yeah, it was a pleasant surprise, and yeah, he definitely delivered, so it was good.
Yeah, I thought first of all, it was just great to see Tobin Bell back because that was not something that you'd expect, and especially when the movie
Right.
started off, it just and not only that, but it just looked like it was into the future, so to speak. You know what I mean? And but it was great though. I thought he had great presence as always, and his dialogue and everything. I was just like, wow, this is so cool. But anyways, he basically is confronting both of them right then and there and talking about how they haven't confessed to the evil that they've done. And you start to realize what they've done. Ryan basically got his friends killed because he was acting like an idiot in a car, a fast moving car. But even
Mhm.
worse kill is what Anna did, because in the beginning of the
Yeah.
movie we find out that her husband was put away because he killed their baby by rolling over on top of the baby while he was asleep and so forth. Then we realize what really happened. Kill, I'll let you take it from there. Was that a bombshell when we found that out about her true past?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was bad enough that she blamed her husband, and then
Hmm.
he goes to prison and then commits suicide in
Right.
prison.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I just love how John Kramer don't do any dirt, because he's like Batman. He is the world's greatest detective. Oh, you got drunk with your friends in their convertible and you were acting like an asshole and they crashed and died when you were in college.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Right.
get you. How do you know this, John?
You
And
know what I think?
and
You know what I think he
go,
d-
go
what
ahead.
I think he does, because I've thought about that a lot over all these movies. But I mean, I think he literally. Well, some people like Anna, he's connected to. You know
Yes,
what I'm saying?
yes.
So that is kind of easy. But for some of these other people, I think he just goes back into like whether it's news articles or whatever, and that's how he finds out their past and so forth, because we've seen him be able to find out some really deep shit on people, almost like police do. And we know he's got connections and stuff too. But anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry, I was interrupting you.
Oh, no, no, no. I just, I've just always wondered, like, how do you choose some of these people that aren't connected to you? Because
Yeah,
Anna was his
right.
neighbor, and he could hear the baby crying, and then all of a sudden the
Hmm.
baby wasn't crying, and he also could hear her, screaming, "Be quiet, shut up," and
Right.
so he could infer things there.
Hmm.
But I love how he just kind of spills the tea on both of them, and
Hmm.
kind of lets them know this is why you're here.
Right.
You've done evil things and you've gotten away with it,
Hmm.
but not tonight, not tonight,
Right.
Bob.
Not me, Bob.
Not me, Bob.
I love it. Coriander, what about you in this scene? He basically, and you got to love Tobin's delivery, because he gets a shotgun prepared. He says, with the shell, he said, "This is your key to freedom." And he puts the shell into the shotgun and gets it all prepped and puts it in the middle of both of them. And what did you
Hmm.
think about all this setup and ultimately what happens is in the scene?
Yeah, obviously, the poor dude with half of, who got his leg chopped off
Right.
wasn't going to get to that gun before her.
That's right.
So my first thought, honestly, was like, yeah, this bitch is going to end up blowing him away. And
Hmm.
yeah, man, it just didn't quite work out that way. She ended up, her greediness of, I want to live and fuck you, you're going to die, and she ends up dying. So yeah. It was a great scene.
And the other thing too is that John was giving them the clues because he was
Yeah.
saying, you guys, you have it all backwards and so forth. And of
Yeah.
course, that was, alluding to the gun, shooting the gun.
Hmm.
You're going to get shot yourself. But when he said, "This is your key to freedom with the shell," we find out, or I should say, Ryan finds out that there was a key inside
Yeah.
of it. And so, of
Yeah.
course, the look, I mean, you could just tell the look on his face. And you know what I think was cool? And, you guys in the live chat, let me know what you think. But I think the franchise itself was kind of giving you this vibe, just like in the first movie, of, man, you are screwed because no one is going to find you before you starve to death. You get what I'm saying? Kind of
Or
playing
bleed
on,
out.
well, that
Mhm.
too, but kind of playing on our knowledge of the franchise, especially from part one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What did you
But
think of
not
that,
only,
Kill? Oh, go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Corey.
well, no, I was just gonna say, if only, like you said, they listened to what he was saying, and she didn't
Yeah.
even have to shoot that gun. They could have just taken that bullet out and got that key, and
Hmm.
but hey, it is what it is.
Yep.
That's all I was
What,
gonna say.
what were you gonna say, Kill?
Well, I agree. It definitely has shades to the first Saw movie because
Hmm.
essentially this was his first trap,
Right.
and there both of the participants of this trap were chained by their ankles,
Right.
which is very reminiscent of the first trap,
Hmm.
with the doctor. And yeah, I mean, you always just got to listen to what John says, man, because it wasn't only
Yeah.
one key in there, it was two keys in the shell. He made
Hmm.
the shell himself and he loaded it in backwards. And
Yep.
I'm sorry, guys, do not trust shotguns in the Saw universe,
Right.
especially if
Yeah.
Jigsaw trusts the firearm, and don't
Hmm.
try the door. Don't
Right.
try the door
Yeah.
because there's a gun on the other side of that keyhole and you're going to get shot in the eye. Yep, and there you
That's
go.
right. Yep. And but that was the messed up part, is while all that's happening, you had Logan and the assistant. They were at a farmhouse, and at the time I'm thinking, what's going on? And all of a sudden you see that and you're like, uh-oh. that's that's the Amanda trap, you know what I mean? And so there were so many things going on at this point, but you come to find out that they were being followed, by Holleran. And so ultimately you knew that there was going to be this confrontation, especially between Logan and Holleran, and sure enough it was. But all of a sudden something happens because both of them get taken out, at different times, and the next thing you know, they're both tied up. Coriander, at this point, what were you thinking? Because both of them are tied up; they can't get out of this contraption, and you find out that these are laser cutters, which was
Yeah,
pretty cool and crafty. What did you think about that scene?
it
Of course, the
was.
finale of everything,
Yeah, I thought it was pretty damn cool.
Hmm.
One thing that, I was even like, because when, the lasers went up and they were getting closer, as he was confessing of like, this is all I've done. And,
Hmm.
when it went through and I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna see pieces. And when we didn't, I kind of, I didn't really think that, okay, I didn't know what I thought, I was like, okay, I guess he's dead, and then
Yeah, well, and you saw
once.
blood, and he spit out blood, and yeah.
Right, right. So it
Hmm.
kind of got you. And when you start happened to the other guy, and yeah, you could see the ceiling burning, and it's like, wait, you didn't
Yeah,
see that with the other guy. And
right.
yeah, and then you kind of realize that, holy shit, this freaking dude's involved, and it's been
Well,
him, and oops.
well. Before that happened, though, because he basically falls to the ground. Logan falls to the ground, spitting out blood and everything. And so Halloran thinks, okay, I've won, and this and that.
Yeah,
And the lasers are still going, so he's still in confession mode, and he confesses to everything.
yeah,
Innocent people have died. He's let crooks off. He's taken
mhm,
bribes and all that. He's dirty cop. He confessed to it all. And then all of a
yeah,
sudden, you, he looks up at the ceiling because it stops, the laser stops, and he sees the burns. And then he looks over where Logan's is, He doesn't see any burns. And then Kill, we get that moment. Logan stands up. I was like, whoa. I'm being for real. And I've seen all these movies. When I first saw this movie, that caught me. Did it catch you, Kill? Honestly, when you first saw it, did it
It
catch you?
caught me. It
Okay.
caught me.
All right.
But you know, it's so funny. This is my favorite trap. When you actually see it really do its
Oh
job.
yeah. Yeah.
But I love the way Matt Passmore gets up and you hear the music,
Yeah.
you know, and he just has this total different look on his face, like,
Yeah, he
you
does.
know,
Yeah.
shades of Costas when you find out he's the bad
Yeah.
guy, shades of John, and I'm like, yes. And he's just looking at, Hollorant like, yep, I got you, and he just takes it off, and it's like, oh man. and
Yep.
and then of course, just like in great, Saw fashion, you see the flashbacks.
Yeah, and you see everything that happened. He was basically in that first trap as the person that was unconscious, and Jigsaw basically
Spared
spared
him.
him, and kind of, taught him the ways and all that type of stuff. But it was also because he realized. Now, okay, let me back up because we're all over the place. We come to realize that Logan made the mistake on the x-rays. So in other words, John wasn't diagnosed as soon as he could have been. And so in other words, he was in a trap because John wanted revenge. He was angry. And so that was a lesson for John that this can't be out of anger. He said emotion can never be a part of it. And he's said that in previous movies. And so you see the two of them, working together and so forth. And we realized that what we had seen with Anna and Mitch and Ryan and those guys was the 10 years ago. And that's how obviously John Kramer was around at that point because he was still alive. That whole thing, it was like mind blowing. I thought it was really cool how they brought it all together. And of course, in the present day, Logan had recreated those traps with other people, and of course, that wasn't the big part of the movie, but he wanted to see if he could be successful like Jigsaw. I mean, Kill. It was pretty mind blowing to me because it's like, wow, they really had a lot of levels to this movie that kind of all got tied up. Did you think it got all tied up pretty good?
Yes. Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, and some people can sit and say, okay, so he was the disciple, before
Hmm.
Amanda, and before Costas, and
And
before
before
the
Gordon.
doctor. And yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, hey, look, he's a people person. People like John.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was never
Yeah.
implied, that John was like, "Hey, come with me and help me." He just basically said, "We can talk for the dead now." You know what I mean? And so, in my mind, and Coriander, let me know what you think. In my mind, John was basically like, "Okay, I've kind of shown you a path. Do with it what you will." And then John went on his own path, and then started to test people, not out of revenge and not out of anger. You know what I mean? Is that how you took it, Coriander, or what do you think? Because some people, they get caught up on that because they're like, well, why wasn't Logan in those first, several movies,
Yeah. Well, I kind of asked that too, right? Like, how come he wasn't in the other movies?
Right.
Um, you know, I, the way they handled it was, yeah, good enough for me, because
Mhm.
these movies, they do have like a bunch of, twists and turns, and if you don't pay attention, you might miss something,
Right, right,
so it
right.
can get complicated. So,
Oh, it
uh,
can.
it just, I mean, it was fine by me, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Real quick too in the chat, just to catch up to these guys a little bit as well. And we've got Twisted Picture saying, "Imagine if these movies were based on actual events. Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy."
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah, it would.
and we got Melissa in the chat saying, "Hey, what's going on, Melissa? Nice to see you. Nice to
Hey,
see you."
Hey.
And Neil was saying that's a common thread with all the Saw movies. Nobody listens. Yeah, true. Nobody
Hmm.
follows the rules. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always, a lot of times the answers are right there. We've seen that, especially in the later movies. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, Twisted Picture saying, who was more of an asshole cop, Detective Halloran or Detective Matthews? Well,
I think
Mm,
probably
Holleran.
Holleran. Holleran. I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
because from what he said in his confession, a lot of innocent people died. I think
Yeah.
Matthews, he was just a hothead. And a lot of times with these criminals, he would just say, "Hey, you've been taken in 3 times before. You may not be guilty right now, but you probably will be. So I'm going to plant some evidence on you and take you in." So I think Holleran definitely. What about you, Kill? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Although his death was very quick. He wasn't held a
It
hostage for a
was.
while and and
Yeah, that's
tested and
true.
put through traps and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing about that trap. His
Mhm.
head got turned into a flower. Okay,
It did,
the
man.
way that it spreads out,
Yeah. It
I was
Yeah.
did,
like,
man.
oh man, whew,
That was
Yeah.
great.
it
It
was
was,
awesome.
man. It was. Well, I mean, I think for me, and I'll ask this of you guys too. I think this movie, again, being the eighth movie in the franchise, I think I think it did a really good job. I had actually forgotten how much I did enjoy it. I haven't seen it as much as the other ones. This was only like I think maybe my fourth time seeing it. For this episode, but I thought it was good. It's
Yeah.
definitely one that I'm gonna revisit. Again sooner than I thought beforehand. What about you, Coriander? It's just final thoughts.
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty good movie. And again, they keep surprising you with throwing something different and it works.
Right.
And yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any final thoughts for you, Kill, on it?
No, I mean, I just, just to restate it again, I love this movie, and there, it's so crazy about this franchise. Spiral will be the ninth movie, and then we have a new one coming
Right.
out in October, and that'll be
Hmm.
number 10. And I'm sorry,
Right.
there is no bad movie in this franchise. There are some that are
Hmm.
better than others, but
Right.
there is not a bad movie,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
crazy. So
Yep.
yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's one of those things. Twisted Picture saying a flower. Yeah. It did get spread open like a flower, his head. Um, but yeah, I think if you're a fan of this type of film, as far as like a mystery being solved, some type of thread you've got to follow, detective work and all that type of stuff. I think is definitely a franchise that you'll always find something that you like in it. Because they're done well. They're done well, and they usually have some really, really great actors. So I think that's kind of the advantage of this franchise, being what the foundation of it is. But yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot. And before we head on out, obviously the news is out there, and it's been out there for a couple days now or whatever. But Tobin Bell is going to be in Saw 10. He is back
All right.
officially. It's been made public. It's official, confirmed that he will be back. Here's my last question to you guys, or maybe my last question.
Mhm.
Kill, what do you think they're going to do with this movie? How is he going to be back? He is, and he is going to be John Kramer. So it's not like he's going to be like some cousin like Dan Kramer or something. He is John Kramer. Jigsaw. Tobin Bell is
No
back
evil
in this
twin,
movie. No
no
evil
evil
twin.
twin or eviler twin.
That's right.
Honestly, I never try to predict when it comes to the Saw franchise because
Hmm.
they always just kind of go against expectation and do something that I would like. For instance, with this movie, I never thought that the time frame that I was looking at was in the past with him.
Right. Well, now we've
So
seen we've seen them do that twice now.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, twice now because of course 4 took place at the same time as 3.
Hmm.
So that was, a way for Jigsaw to be anyways. But do you think it's going to well, let me ask Coriander first and I'll go back to you. Coriander, do you have an idea how they're going to bring him back?
I mean, unless they're gonna do it like they did with this guy, and have a
Right.
scene where they they worked with him before, or maybe with the prequel of some sort.
Okay. So yeah, it could be a past story. Obviously, that's what this basically was. They could do it
Right.
that way. Um my thought, it could be a prequel, but maybe they might just, go off the timeline. You know what I'm saying? Like something that happened in between, you know, I don't know, just like they've done with some other like requels, that's a possibility, you know.
Hmm.
I think I'd like to see that, you know what I mean? Like maybe something that happened in between 1 and 2. I know that's tough or whatever, or maybe it's just redoing, not a remake, but maybe, entering in between, a couple of the movies and just going off on its own thing. I don't know, man. There's a lot of different ways it could go. Um, Lay was saying, I'm thinking time jump to past or some kind of alternative universe stuff. Could be, could be, yeah, yeah. Um, Neil was saying, I'm with Kill. I like the storyline that runs throughout the franchise. So for me, none of the movies are bad, just varying degrees of good. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Lee saying, can't wait for the next Saw. Me
Hmm.
too. Yeah. Yep. Twisted Picture saying, to all the Saw fans, Saw 10, who would you want to make a return? Major or non-major characters? Ooh, that's a good question. What about you guys? Who would you like to see come back?
Hmm.
Or is there anyone you want to see come back? Because if
Probably
it, go ahead.
Eric Matthews, if we could.
Okay.
Hmm.
How about you,
Yeah.
Kel?
Man, I love me some Amanda.
Yeah.
You just somehow like maybe another adventure during that period where she was kind of his main disciple,
Yeah.
maybe like right after she passed her test. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I think that could definitely work. That's what I mean is because, we don't know how much time elapsed between all of that, right? Because, in the later movies, I think it was it 6 or 5? I can't remember, but when he was talking to Jill, talking about Amanda's redemption and so forth, in other words, he didn't make it sound like it took a day for that to happen. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And I'm sure it wasn't just a day, for all we know, it could have been weeks. So, there is some places in there that they could go. I gotta admit, man, you guys know me. I'm a Costas guy.
I know.
Hoffman was just so cool, just so many layers to him, the way that Costas portrayed Hoffman. But I agree, it would be nice to see Eric Matthews. I really thought that there was a great character and we didn't get enough of him. You know what I mean?
Well, you know
But
what I was
same thing
thinking
with
too?
Amanda.
Yeah, it's almost
What's that?
like at the end, I can't remember which one it was, but when the doctor revealed that it was him doing
Gordon?
shit. Yes.
Yeah, Gordon.
And
Yep.
then we never heard or saw anything after that. So
Right.
I think having him come back would be pretty cool too.
Right. But of course, John Kramer is dead at that point, or at least that's yeah, he's dead. He's dead at that point. But
Yeah,
how would
well,
how,
I'm
how
just
how would they
saying.
you mean if they did a story with Gordon and spliced
Right,
it kind of like
because
this movie where you have a past story with Kramer as
kinda,
well?
because
Yeah, that could
didn't
work.
they show in that point, when he was thinking back that weren't they doing shit together?
Yes, yes.
Right?
And prepping
So,
stuff, the medical stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Real quick too in the chat, Jamie jumped in saying hello. What's going on, Jamie? Good to
Hello.
see
Hey.
you. Neil saying, "Yeah, I want Shawnee Smith back." Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Sarah's in the chat saying, "I'm super late, but I saw a channel celebration, so congrats on whatever we're currently celebrating." Which is, having fun with Saw, and it's almost Halloween, and that's pretty much what we were doing. Too funny. The Hatchet Boys in the chat saying, "Hey everyone, what's going on? What's going on? Good to
Hello.
see you."
Hey.
Ginger Ninja saying never enough Shawnee Smith, right? And Lee saying as well, I do agree, hoping more Amanda. All right.
Yeah.
Jamie going with Dr. Gordon. All right. And Twisted Picture saying hashtag Hoffman not officially dead. Hashtag justice for Hoffman. And
Nice.
Russell agrees. It's true though, man. They really could do something with that because he could come out of it. But anyways, guys, that's about that's about all we have for Jigsaw. It's definitely a really cool movie, really surprising, for an eighth installment in a franchise. So we definitely enjoyed it, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it too. And obviously, next we've got Spiral on the list, so we'll definitely be doing that soon. But wishing you guys also a happy Halloween, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you guys before then as well. So, anyways, we'll catch you guys later. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.
Up
Peace.
church.